I still remember my first day of college. Not because the building was big or the classrooms were crowded, but because that was the day I saw her for the first time. I was standing near the college gate, holding my bag tightly, trying to look confident even though I was not. Everything felt new and unfamiliar. Students were walking past me, laughing, talking, living a life I had only imagined before. I came from a small town, and this big city college felt like a different world. I kept telling myself that I belonged here, even when my heart said otherwise. Inside the classroom, noise filled the air. Groups had already formed. Some people looked comfortable, as if this place had always been theirs. I chose the last bench near the window. I liked sitting there because it made me feel less visible, less judged. I looked outside, watching the trees move with the wind, when suddenly the door opened. She walked in quietly. I didn't know her name. I didn't know anything about her. Yet something inside me changed at that moment. She wore a light pink kurti, simple and soft, just like her presence. Her hair was tied back loosely, and a few strands touched her face. She wasn't trying to get attention, but she didn't need to. My eyes followed her without my permission. For a brief second, our eyes met. It was nothing special, nothing dramatic, but my heart reacted as if it had been waiting for that moment. I quickly looked away, afraid she might see what was written on my face. She took a seat a few rows ahead of me, and from that moment, the classroom felt different.
The teacher started speaking, but I couldn't focus. My thoughts kept returning to her. Then I saw her pen fall from her desk and roll back toward me. I picked it up and tapped her desk gently. "Excuse me," I said. She turned around and looked at me. Her eyes were calm, curious. "Yes?" "This is yours," I said, handing her the pen. She smiled and said, "Thank you." That smile stayed with me long after the class ended. Days passed, and without realizing it, she became a part of my routine. I noticed how she always came early, how she liked sitting near the sunlight, how she smiled softly while reading. Slowly, we started talking. First about classes, then about our hometowns, and then about small things that mattered more than they seemed. Her name was Anaya. She told me she loved painting. I told her I liked writing, though I never showed my words to anyone. She said I was quiet, and I agreed. Quiet felt safe. Quiet felt honest. After classes, we sometimes walked together to the bus stop. We didn't touch hands or talk about feelings. Still, those walks meant more to me than anything else. I started waiting for her without admitting it. My day felt incomplete if I didn't see her smile. One evening, we sat in the college garden, watching the sky turn orange. She asked me if I believed that some people came into our lives for a reason. I didn't know the right answer, so I told her the truth. I said some meetings change us forever. She didn't reply. She just looked at the sky. And in that silence, something began. I didn't call it love then. I was too afraid to name it. But deep inside, my heart already knew what my mind was still trying to understand. That was how it started. Slowly. Quietly. Without any promises. And I had no idea how deeply it would change me.
I didn't realize when she stopped being just a part of my day and started becoming the reason behind it. Some mornings, I woke up thinking about her smile. Some nights, I went to sleep replaying our small conversations in my head. Nothing big had happened between us, yet everything felt different. College days moved forward in a slow rhythm. Lectures, assignments, short breaks, long walks. Somewhere between all of this, Anaya and I grew closer without planning it. We started sitting together in class. If she missed a lecture, I shared my notes. If I missed one, she explained it patiently, as if teaching me was something she enjoyed. Sometimes, we studied in the library. We sat across from each other, pretending to read, but often looking up just to check if the other was still there. When our eyes met, we smiled quietly and went back to our books. Those moments felt peaceful, like the world had slowed down only for us. One afternoon, while we were walking out of college, it started raining suddenly. Everyone ran for shelter. We stood under a small shed near the gate, listening to the sound of rain hitting the ground. She stretched her hand out, letting the raindrops fall on her palm, and laughed softly. I watched her, feeling something warm in my chest. "I love rain," she said. "It makes everything feel clean." I nodded. "It makes people slow down." She looked at me and smiled, as if she understood what I meant. That evening, we talked longer than usual. About childhood memories. About fears we never shared with anyone. She told me she was scared of losing people she loved. I told her I was scared of not being enough. She listened without judging, and that made me feel lighter. Slowly, she became the first person I wanted to talk to when something good happened, and the only one who made bad days feel less heavy. I didn't say it, but I depended on her more than I should have. One day, while sitting on the last bench, she leaned closer to see my notebook. Our shoulders touched. It was nothing, yet everything. My heart started racing, and I suddenly forgot what we were studying. She didn't move away. Instead, she stayed there, close, as if that distance between us had always been meant to disappear. That was the moment I realized I was in love with her. The realization scared me. Love always does. Because once you love someone, you give them the power to hurt you. And I wasn't sure I was ready for that. So I kept quiet. I hid my feelings behind smiles and normal conversations. One day, she asked me about my writing again. She said she wanted to read something I had written. I told her I would show her someday. The truth was, every word I wrote was about her, and I didn't know how to explain that without exposing my heart. She talked about her dreams often. She wanted to study further, maybe even go abroad. Her eyes lit up when she spoke about the future. I smiled and encouraged her, even though something inside me tightened every time she mentioned leaving. My world was small. Hers was big. And I wondered where I fit in her dreams. As days passed, people around us started noticing. Friends teased us. Some asked if we were together. We always laughed it off. We never gave it a name. But names don't change feelings. Silence doesn't erase truth. One evening, while walking back from college, she suddenly stopped and looked at me. "Arjun," she said softly, "do you think some people come into our lives only for a short time?" Her question caught me off guard. "I don't know," I replied. "Why do you ask?" She smiled, but there was sadness in her eyes. "No reason. Just a thought." I wanted to ask her more. I wanted to understand what she was thinking. But I was afraid of the answer. So I let it go. That night, I couldn't sleep. Her question kept repeating in my mind. For the first time, a small fear entered my heart. A fear that this happiness might not last forever. I didn't know then that this fear was trying to warn me. Because sometimes, before life takes something away, it gives you a quiet sign. The days after that felt almost the same, yet something had changed. I could sense it in the way she spoke, in the pauses between her words. She was still smiling, still walking beside me, but a part of her seemed distant, as if her mind was somewhere far away. I told myself I was overthinking. I didn't want to believe that anything could come between us. We continued meeting every day. Sitting together in class. Sharing lunch sometimes. Talking about small things that didn't really matter, just to keep the silence away. But I started noticing that she checked her phone more often. Sometimes she would go quiet after reading a message. When I asked her if everything was okay, she would smile and say yes. I trusted that smile, even when my heart felt unsure. One afternoon, while we were sitting under a tree inside the campus, she finally told me something that had been sitting heavy in her heart. "My parents want me to apply for a university outside India," she said softly. I didn't reply immediately. The words felt too heavy. That's great," I said after a moment. "You always wanted that." She looked at me, trying to read my face. Do you really think so? I nodded, even though my chest felt tight. Yes. You should go. She smiled, but her eyes didn't shine the way they usually did. I haven't decided yet, she said. I just wanted you to know. That evening, I walked home alone. The road felt longer than usual. For the first time, the future didn't feel exciting. It felt empty. I realized then that I had slowly made her the center of my world, without asking if I was part of hers. Still, I didn't say anything. I told myself that loving someone also means supporting their dreams, even when those dreams take them away from you. Days turned into weeks. Exams came and went. We studied together late into the evening, sometimes in the library, sometimes in the canteen. Those moments felt precious now, like time was slipping through my fingers and I couldn't stop it. One night, she called me. Arjun, she said, her voice low. Are you awake? Yes, I replied. What happened? I'm scared, she said after a pause. Of what? Of change, she whispered. Of losing people. I wanted to tell her that she wouldn't lose me. That I would always be there. But I didn't know if I could keep that promise. So instead, I said, whatever happens, you'll be okay. She stayed silent for a few seconds. Then she said, thank you for always understanding me. After the call ended, I stared at my phone for a long time. Her words echoed in my mind. Understanding her had become my role, but being understood by her felt uncertain. One evening, as the semester neared its end, she met me in the college garden. The sky was cloudy, and the air felt heavy, like it was holding back rain. I got the offer, she said quietly. My heart skipped. Which offer? The university abroad, she replied. They accepted me. I forced a smile. That's amazing, Anaya. She looked at me closely. Why do you sound sad? I'm not sad, I lied. I'm proud of you. She didn't say anything. She just looked away. We sat there for a long time without speaking. I wanted to confess everything. I wanted to tell her that I loved her, that I didn't want her to go, that my world felt incomplete without her. But fear held me back. Fear of making things harder for her. Fear of being the reason she might hesitate. So I stayed quiet. And sometimes, silence becomes the biggest mistake. That night, I wrote the longest poem of my life. It was about a girl who walked into someone's life and changed it forever. I didn't send it to her. I saved it and closed my notebook, not knowing that time was already running out. The days after that felt heavier, as if every moment was carrying a silent goodbye inside it. Even when we laughed, there was a sadness hiding somewhere between us. I could feel time pulling her away, slowly but surely, and no matter how tightly I held on to normal days, they kept slipping through my fingers. We still met every day, but now each meeting felt precious. I started noticing details I had never cared about before. The way she tied her hair when she was thinking. The small line that appeared on her forehead when she was worried. The way she looked at the sky when she felt confused. I told myself to remember everything, as if memories could replace her presence later. One afternoon, while we were studying in the library, she suddenly closed her book and looked at me. Arjun, she said, can I ask you something honestly? Of course, I replied. Why are you always so calm? She asked. Even when things are clearly changing. I smiled weakly. Maybe because I'm scared of what will happen if I'm not. She looked at me for a long moment. You never talk about your feelings. I wanted to tell her that my feelings were sitting right in front of her. That every silence, every smile, every sacrifice was because of her. But the words stayed stuck in my throat. Some feelings are hard to say, I said instead. She nodded, but her eyes looked disappointed. That day, for the first time, I felt the distance growing between us. Not in steps, but in unspoken words. As her departure date came closer, college started preparing for the end of the semester. Farewell parties were planned.
Friends clicked photos, laughing loudly, pretending nothing was ending.
I smiled in pictures, but inside, everything felt unfinished. One evening, she asked me to walk with her after class. We walked slowly, neither of us in a hurry to reach anywhere. "I'll be leaving next month," she said softly.
"I know," I replied.
"Will you miss me?" she asked, suddenly stopping.
I looked at her. For a second, I almost told her everything.
Almost told her that my world already felt empty without her. Almost told her that I loved her.
Instead, I said, "Of course I will."
She smiled sadly.
"You always say just enough."
That line hurt more than she knew. A few days later, she stopped sitting beside me in class.
Not suddenly, not clearly. Just gradually.
She chose a different seat, a different group. She was still kind, still friendly, but something had changed.
I didn't ask her why. I was afraid of the answer.
One night, she messaged me late.
"Do you ever regret not saying things on time?"
I stared at the screen for a long time.
"Sometimes," I replied. "Me too," she sent back.
That conversation ended there, but it stayed with me. I wondered if we were both waiting for the other to speak, while time silently made the decision for us. The day of her farewell party arrived. The campus was full of lights and music.
Everyone was smiling. Everyone except me. She looked beautiful that evening. Confident. Ready for the future.
I watched her from a distance, feeling proud and broken at the same time.
When the night was almost over, she came to me. "Arjun," she said softly, "I'm glad I met you." I swallowed. "Me too." She hugged me. Just once. Just briefly. And in that moment, I realized something painful.
Some goodbyes don't happen with words. They happen with hugs that last 1 second too long. I didn't know then that this might be the last time I felt her heartbeat so close to mine. After that night, everything felt quiet in a way I had never known before. College was still there, people were still laughing, classes were still happening, but something important was missing.
Or maybe someone.
I kept seeing her everywhere even when she wasn't there.
On the bench where we used to sit.
In the library corner where we studied.
On the road where we walked together every evening. Her last week in the city came and went too fast. We didn't meet much during those days. She was busy with preparations, documents, family things.
I told myself this was normal, that this was life moving forward. But deep inside, I felt like I was slowly being left behind. The night before she left, she called me. "I didn't want to leave without talking to you," she said.
"Me neither," I replied.
There was silence between us, heavy and full of things we never said.
"Arjun," she finally spoke, "do you think we could have been something more?" My heart stopped for a moment. "Yes," I said honestly. "I think about that a lot."
"Then why didn't we try?" she asked softly.
I closed my eyes. "Because I didn't want to hold you back." She sighed. "Sometimes I wish you had been a little selfish."
Her words broke something inside me. "I didn't know how," I said.
"I was scared of losing you."
There was a pause. Then she said, "You lost me anyway." That sentence stayed with me longer than the call itself. The next morning, she left.
I didn't go to the airport.
Not because I didn't care, but because I knew I wouldn't be able to let her go if I saw her one last time.
Some goodbyes are easier when you don't witness them. Days turned into weeks. We texted sometimes. Short messages. Simple updates.
She sent pictures of her new place, her university, her new life.
I replied with smiles and encouragement, hiding the emptiness behind words.
Slowly, the messages became less frequent.
One day, they stopped. I didn't ask why. I already knew.
Time moved on, like it always does.
I finished college. I found work. Life continued. On the outside, I looked fine.
On the inside, I carried her with me everywhere. Sometimes, late at night, I opened my notebook and read the poems I had written for her. Words I never showed her. Feelings I never confessed. I often wondered what would have happened if I had spoken on time. If I had told her I loved her before life pulled us apart. But regrets don't change the past. They only remind you of what you lost. Years later, I saw her again. Not in real life. On social media. She looked happy. Successful. Smiling. I stared at the screen for a long time, then closed the app. Some loves are not meant to stay. They come to teach you something, then leave. She taught me how deeply I could feel. How silent love could still hurt the most. And even now, after everything, when it rains, I still think of her. Because some people never really leave. They just become memories that hurt a little less with time. Even after all these years, there are moments when the past suddenly feels close. Not loud, not dramatic, just quiet and heavy. It happens when I pass a college campus and hear laughter that reminds me of ours. Or when I sit alone in a cafe and see two people sharing silence comfortably. That kind of silence always brings her back. I tried to love again. I really did. I met kind people. Good people. People who deserved a full heart. But something in me always held back, as if a part of my heart was already occupied. Not because I wanted it to be, but because it never learned how to leave. Once, late at night, I found the courage to read the old poems again. I realized they weren't just about her. They were about the boy I used to be, the boy who believed love meant sacrifice, who thought staying silent was a way of protecting someone. I understood then that love also needs courage. And I didn't have enough of it at the right time. I don't blame her. I never did. She chose her dreams, and she was right to do so. Sometimes love is not about choosing each other. Sometimes it is about choosing what you are meant to become, even if it costs you someone you care about deeply. There are days when I imagine an alternate life. One where I spoke up. One where she stayed. One where we tried, even if we failed. But imagination is a gentle liar. It shows you what you want, not what would have survived. The truth is simpler and sadder. We loved each other in the only way we knew how. Quietly. Incompletely. Too late. I don't wait for her anymore. I don't check for messages that will never come. But I carry a soft corner in my heart that still remembers her kindness, her questions, her unfinished sentences. Some stories don't end with togetherness. They end with understanding. And this was one of them. She was not the love that stayed. She was the love that changed me. And maybe that was enough. There is a strange peace that comes after heartbreak, but it arrives very late. It comes only after you stop asking questions that have no answers. I reached that place slowly, after years of carrying her memory like a quiet weight on my chest. I no longer wake up missing her, but sometimes I still pause when I hear her name. It doesn't hurt the way it used to. It feels more like touching an old scar, proof that something once mattered deeply. Life taught me how to move forward, even when the heart wants to look back. I learned to smile without forcing it. I learned to sit with my thoughts without feeling lonely. And I learned that love doesn't always mean staying. Sometimes it means letting go without anger. Once, while cleaning my room, I found that old notebook. The one filled with poems I never showed her. I read them slowly, one by one. They felt distant, like they were written by someone else. Maybe they were written by a younger version of me, someone who loved quietly and feared loudly. I didn't tear the pages. I didn't keep them either. I closed the notebook and placed it back where it belonged in the past. I don't know where life has taken her now. I don't try to find out. Some chapters are meant to stay closed, not because they were bad, but because reopening them changes nothing. What I know is this. I loved her in the only way I knew how at the time. She left in the only way she had to. And between those two truths, a story was born. It didn't have a happy ending. It didn't have a forever. But it had honesty. It had growth. It had meaning. And maybe that's enough for a love that was never meant to last. Some people come into your life not to stay, but to show you who you are capable of becoming. She was that person for me. And this was our story.